Hey everybody, Ken Plume here, and welcome to, well, this is a bit of a special thing. Not only is this for podcast listeners, an episode of A Bit of a Chat, but this is also a special edition of Force 5, where I have folks on to talk about their top 5 favorite Star Wars figures, any vintage, any era. But again, this is a special edition because I have 2 guests on. That's the first special thing about it. So that's a first. But also we're going to be talking about one of the, I think, indispensable books that any Star Wars fan should have instantly in their collection if they want to have one of the most excellent guides to modern Star Wars action figure collecting ever produced. Maybe will ever be produced. Have I built you guys up enough? I'm going to introduce my guests. We have Rich Alot and Dave Myatt. Is I pronounced this both right?
Myatt.
Myatt. Okay.
I like Myatt better.
Myatt sounds like a Star Wars figure.
It does.
But Dave has a couple of parentheses in it.
Yeah.
Apostrophes in it. Would you like that in the vintage line? Would you like your Dave Myatt figure?
If
the Ave
vintage line, I'd be like
Da'av.
Canadian man, or like, something like that. I don't know.
He's very easy to open packaging, very easy to take care of. He's a figure that just minds his own business. He's just over in the corner in Jabba's palace. Not really part of things, just there.
Yeah, wearing a fuzzy skirt for some reason.
Yeah. Are there toques in the Star Wars universe? Is that a thing that happens?
Well, there would be. There would be
now.
on my Kenner figure.
So you both need to design your own vintage collection figures at the end of this as well, what your accessories would be. But the book, so the official title of the book, let me get the full title, is Star Wars The Vintage Collection Archive Edition, right? Is that the full
Correct.
book? For the video folks, I'm going to hold up this beautiful copy of the book so they can see. This thing is incredible. Let me just state first and foremost, you were very kind enough to send it over. It's I haven't felt this sort of Christmas feeling of opening a Star Wars collecting book since I got this decades ago.
That's what it is inspired by. That absolutely.
So this is Steve Sansweet's Star Wars The Action Figure Archive with this iconic silver cover. Getting this as a kid who grew up with the original Kenner collection was just an incredible walk down memory lane to see things. And the great thing about this as well is, both the books, your book and that book, is seeing things you might never have known existed. Because there's so much product that was out, so much product that was exclusive, so much product that was regional, so much product that maybe never made it into your area that I had no idea some of the things existed or that the variations existed. And so that is also the fun of going through these books. So first and foremost, thank you for doing the book. As Star Wars collector, it is a joy to go through something that was produced with the same love and care that you have for collecting those things by folks who obviously feel the same way that you do about them.
I think so. Thank you for having us. And I think that the one thing that I know our goal was with this was to make this book basically the successor to that book, the spiritual successor. And we went as far as, if you hold the two of them up together, and sorry, I'm in Force Ghost mode because I'm having video issues, but Ken, if you hold the two of them together.
Also, he was struck down in battle, and the battle to get this book to market.
Yes. Their size, we even match the sizes up, so if you put them together on the bookshelf, they'll fit. We match the sizes and everything, because when we were growing up, that book by Steve is what inspired us to do this book.
So what inspired you to make this book a reality? So tell me a little bit about your backgrounds, because you certainly have a deep background in the professional fan community. You know, you've certainly done some jobs that on the professional side and working in the industry.
Go for it,
And
Dave.
yeah. Well, he threw that to you fast,
No, right.
almost like he's guiding you through the
Yeah, right.
force.
Yeah. I, back in the 90s, I did a Star Wars fanzine, and that morphed into doing an online comic book. What we didn't know at the time is that we were creating the world's first internet comic book. And that was about the Jawas. And that sort of got me in the door. Then I started working on some of the online websites. And my day job was working on toy commercials. So I'd go home and I'd write about toys. I'd go to work and I'd be working on toys. So I started learning a lot about the photography of toys just from the advertising point of view. And it just got to the point where I was just like, well, maybe I should start photographing this stuff. So 2003, I started, adding to the photo archive of one of the larger Star Wars sites, and kind of went from there. And then Rich and I, a few years later, we started working together on a website called Cool Toy Review. And we just sort of constantly pushed each other, right? Challenged each other to come up with a cooler picture than the last one. And we started working on the vintage collection stuff, I guess, 2012, maybe, Rich? Right? And
Yeah, I think about then.
and that's where we challenged each other the most. So like I'd come up with a picture and I'd send it to him. He's like, oh, and then he'd send me a picture. I'm like, and it was always about like trying to create something more dynamic than what we've ever seen in toy photography at the time, while keeping within the confines of the website style and all that. And then we started looking at the way that the photo archives were written, and we wanted to add more content. And that sort of started us down the road to doing TVC, and doing the Vintage Collection Archive Edition. And it was Rich's, it was his idea, and he kept pushing for it. And I just like, oh, I don't know. But he finally convinced me in 2018 to do that. And then,
What was your reticence? Just knowing what a big project it would be?
Yep, absolutely. And I was already at a bit of a crossroads anyhow. I wasn't quite sure what the future had in store for me. But it was definitely the right project. And so I'm very glad we did the book. But yeah, it was Rich's idea from the beginning. And, we worked on everything that led up to it together. It was his idea, and I'm so glad he convinced me to do it.
Do you recall what the final argument was that pushed you over the edge?
I know what it was. It was me constantly nagging him on like a daily basis. I'm like, and I think just the timing worked because I was my career started in web development and marketing, and we had just relocated across the country. I'd been working for Bluefin as a brand manager for Tamashii Nations, for Bandai Tamashii Nations, and we had just moved, my wife and I, to the East Coast, and I was working remotely, and the hours were insane. So I was getting up at 8 a.m. East Coast time, but because of Japan time, I was staying up to like 12, 1 in the morning, and I was just starting to get burnt out from that. So I realized that, hey, I've been talking about this book with Dave for years, and it's about time that this is an opportunity to do it. Let's I can take a break for a little bit, and we can work on this, and let's see where it goes from there. And so yeah, so basically I was just I was nagging him.
So it's
On,
basically, Dave, not only do you need to do this, I need this,
yeah,
and I need you to do this.
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much.
Well, one of the things is like, at that point, we're on our separate paths, right? It was a matter of getting the band back together to do it, right? So that was kind of thing. It's like finding the right time, in all the other things that we had going, and saying, no, this is the time to do it. And the timing was perfect, right? Like Hasbro was relaunching the line, and it just seemed like there was a lot of energy going into it from the collecting point of view, that so many people were excited about TVC. But at the same time, there's so many new collectors out there who just had no idea about what the old line was. And it just seemed like the perfect time to put a book out that, showcases all that. And just because of the people we got to know over all these years, we knew a lot of the people who created the line, so we were able to talk to them about it. So it just, yeah, it was absolute perfect timing more than anything else.
Yeah, it was the perfect storm, and that's why I kept nagging him about it, because I realized that, and I think he just needed a little bit of nudging, because it's, I mean, when we started looking at it, we realized that the scope of this project was going to be huge. Just the number of vehicles, the number of figures, um,
But when
and
you
then
started talking about it, it was at that point a defunct line, right? When you first started conceptualizing, oh, this is a
Well,
set period of time, because they had already gone over to what they thought the Black series, the smaller Black series, as the inheritor of the vintage collection
yeah,
space on shelves.
originally when we were discussing it, is when we were was was back in 2012. I think we had said, hey, we should probably do a book for this. You know, we've collected a lot of data, we've got a ton of photos, um, and then it just kind of, you know, like Dave said, we kind of went our separate ways, um, and we just got caught up in our own personal and professional lives. And then I think the line had just come back. Hasbro had announced the barge was coming back, the line was coming back. Everyone was super excited. People were, you know, I think Hasbro was still a little bit on the fence, because the Black Series was doing really well. The 6-inch Black Series was doing really well, so they hadn't made a full commitment to the 3 3/4 line yet. But I think it was like, okay, let's wet our toes and see where this goes. And we were like, okay, well, you know, let's do this. Let's show, let's get the community right, you know, rally the community. Let's get a book out there. Let's help the people who'd be jumping, who this is a jumping on point for. And I think again, the timing just really worked out.
mhm. Yeah, and then after that, so yeah, like Rich said, it was a round toy fair. I remember I took a photo of Mark Boudreau holding like the top canopy for the sail barge, and just the look on his face, how excited he was about it, and like it just, that energy was absolutely there.
And for
Um,
anyone who doesn't know who Mark is, can you contextualize how important Mark is?
he's he's the father of it all. Mark Boudreau started off at Kenner in Ohio in 1977, and one of the assignments he got one day is, "Hey, design the Millennium Falcon." And he's like, "Okay," and he's been a part of Star Wars ever since. He's just recently retired, but right up to the Razor Crest. I think he said the Razor Crest was the last thing he worked on. I'd have to go look at my notes, but I think he said the Razor Crest was the last thing before handing it off to Chris Reef to finish it. And so the big Slave One, that's him. The big Millennium Falcon, that's him. Every Millennium Falcon that Hasbro's ever made,
And Slave One, every
and Slave
Falcon and
One.
Slave
That's
One.
right. Yep. Yeah. And you can, if you know what to look for in Mark's designs, you can see that there's a lot of fun and love that's gone into everything, right? Like he knows how to put the playability into something, but at the same time, he knows how to make it look really cool, right? And his own evolution as a creative designer is perfectly told through the Star Wars toys over the course of his career.
I mean, when you look at the compromises that had to be made for budget and scale of that original Kenner line, you can see how invested he was in designing something that felt fun and felt Falcon,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being able to expand it out with that vintage collection version, and
Yeah, and
still having to make compromises, because you're never not going to have to make compromises in a toy line. Uh, how much fun clearly he was having in, well, let's make this bigger. What
Oh,
can we
yeah.
do?
And think about it, like his first Millennium Falcon was kind of timeless. Like they kept producing it off the same tools for 30 years, right? And so that's phenomenal. And when the tools failed and they had to do something else, he just took that ball and he went running with it, and
and
that
it's
new Millennium
interesting
Falcon is
to see
amazing.
how he evolved his design process, to do cross sections and make it more film accurate, which it's kind of evolved with our collection and desire for accuracy. Like collectors wanted it to look like the cross sections and the blueprints, and so he took that, and incorporated that into his design. So yeah, it was a toy, but at the same time, it felt like it part of the movie. Like it was a prop that came from off the screen.
No, it's something that you two can appreciate in the photography aspect of it, that you could actually drop figures in and recreate a movie scene.
Yeah.
That it felt
Sure.
more accurate to being able to drop those things in and like, oh, this is from the movie. This isn't the weirdly stylized thing that I'm gonna have to go, okay, I mean, I guess this is, yeah, I'll run with it. This isn't just a sticker that's
Mhm.
representing something. This is actually molded and incredible, and you light it the right way, you're dropping these things into the movie.
And
Mhm.
some of the incredible things that he did on that Falcon is there was a Luke figure that was revealed, or it was released, I think, in the Saga collection maybe 10 or 15 years before that, and he created a little port in the Falcon so that the
This is the
tourniquet.
Bespin Duel one, right?
Yeah, so the tourniquet can go into that spot. I mean, just knowing, just having such an intimate familiarity with the line and being able to design things so that figures from 10 to 15 years ago can still interact with it, is just shows how incredible his design and vision are.
And I will say, until reading your book, I didn't know that. I have that vintage Falcon, and I have that Bespin Dual Luke that I had found in a box just last week with
Yeah,
his little tourniquet, and I was like, I'm gonna have to try that out.
yeah.
I am gonna stick Luke and his tourniquet into there, and that was also just a weird period of talking about the figures of that era and sort of how the vintage collection evolved that, and sort of evolved along with the sort of collapse of the toy market in the past 15 years, the shortage of outlets for toys, and how the lines have had to accommodate the fact there's just less brick and mortar stores, there's less options for buying things. uh but just the weird diversity of characters that came out in the early 2000s, when you're talking about obscure characters and variants on the characters from like a half-second scene. But
Right.
sure, we'll put out that character in that half-second scene. He
Yeah,
was
they would.
holding a cup in that scene.
Yeah.
This is the Vader holding cup figure.
Yeah, they really, I think at that time, that Saga collection had a lot of those scene specific figures. The Vader, I think, they created, interacted with that Luke. I think the Luke actually even had part of the Bespin,
He does. He has the vein,
the weather vane, and I think Vader has part of the scaffolding.
which breaks
Um,
away.
yes, and they had the little metal sabers, the magnetic sabers, I think, with the metal hilts. Um, so it was, I mean, they were doing interesting things at that time.
But to be backward thinking in the vintage collection,
Yeah,
and so many of the vehicles, because what's documented in your book as well, that a lot of the photography that was done and the box art and was referring to figures that were not actively being produced at that time to use in these vehicles,
yeah,
which was a weird thing to show. It's like, not only can you not get this right now, it's been 10 years since you could
yeah.
get the figure that goes with this thing. But here's the thing, finally. So now, collectors, here's this thing that you can realize a bigger part of your collection and how to display it.
I think they knew that a lot of the people who were interested in these items had the stuff. We've been stockpiling, and we were stockpiling the stuff for years, as collectors. We may not see it because it's probably in a box or a storage tote somewhere. Um, but we've got it somewhere, like you said, you hadn't seen that Luke Bespin, you had to fish it out, but you had it. So
Oh, and I'm sure, I mean, how many things did you have to fish out when you both fully committed to doing this book?
oh my goodness, yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Fair enough.
it was. I think we had to rent a 10 by 10 storage unit to kind of move some stuff out of the space we were using to photograph, because to get everything out and then to have all the boxes available, it just created such a, I mean, it sprawled all across the, I think we had like a 10 by 12 photo area. And we were running out of space because of all, between boxes and packaging and loose figures and um, everything. It ate up a ton of space.
And the vintage collection, as far as a line from either Kenner or Hasbro, is now what the longest running most figures produced line that they've ever done, right? This is officially, I mean, none of them can hold a candle to it. It's what, 2.5, almost 3 times as much as the original Kenner line.
Mhm.
What is there any other line
I think
that comes close?
Power of the Force 2 would maybe be the only thing that would potentially come close, but
But that was what, a 5-year run before Power of the Jedi
Not even, it was 4
replaced
years.
it?
Yeah, because 99 was the end of that line, right?
For Phantom Menace would have
Mhm.
replaced that and
yeah.
then moved in. So, I mean, this has dwarfed any of those when it comes to documenting what's been released. All I'm saying is, Steve, you did a great job, but the task that you two faced in having to try and document, was there any point when you now you've committed to do it, you want to do it, where you looked at just how much was available to do it properly, where it gave you pause and went, are we really going to do this?
Oh man, there was one point, because even before we announced it on Kickstarter, like we spent like almost a full year developing it, and we were batting ideas back and forth creatively about the design, the aesthetic, all of that. And then we talked about the actual physical quality of the book. So we're going all over the US trying to find a printer that would print a book of the quality that we wanted. And there were so many different things, so many different speed bumps, like, oh no, we can't print that size, oh no, we don't want to do a print run that small, oh no, we couldn't possibly make a cover like that, no, we can't use that type of paper. And it was every single effort to find a printer that would do a high quality book. And then we ended up finally finding one, but much further away than we were expecting. But some of the early prototypes we got back for things like our slip cases and everything, we just knew that we were not getting the quality we wanted. And so yeah, that was a bit frustrating at first, I'd say. Like,
But I don't
having a
think
vision and not seeing it physically in front of us.
I don't think in terms of the figures, I don't think that was intimidating as much, only because we had kind of planned it out. We had a spreadsheet of everything that we needed to do. We had pages laid out. There was a couple things here and there where we were like, okay, does this end up being 4 pages? Does this end up being 2 pages? How do we properly handle some of these things? And so the barge and the Falcon ended up being a gatefold, and something like the AT-ATs ended up being 4 pages versus two. So how we handled certain page layouts, I think was because we'd never done something in print before, was for us more intimidating. But we'd had been working on a photo gallery, in a photo archive, so I don't think that part of it itself was intimidating so much as, okay, we're gonna put this in print. This is not digital where you make a mistake and you can just overwrite it. This is like you make a mistake and everyone's gonna know it for
That's
years.
locked into a printing.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, just the first printing, if you manage
Yes.
to make it to a second. Otherwise, it's a forever mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you certainly know the community well enough that no one will let you forget it.
Oh, they won't. And and we've kind of haven't said anything about this, but there is a little I guess an autocorrect. One of the Hasbro designers,
Uh-huh.
um, their name was auto-corrected from, so it's Steve Evans, and it corrected it to Evans. And it just happened that we sent him a photo. David that sent him a thing and said, "Hey, check this out. There's a quote." And he's like, "Hey, my name's misspelled." And we're like, "You've got to be kidding me. No way." We were like, "How did that happen?" We read this over and over and over. And so we ended up doing is one of our books was damaged, and the book that we sent him, we cut out the letter and pasted it over so that his book is correct with the spelling on that one spot.
Which
With a little
make
note that you included said, "What are the odds?"
well, see, that's the funny thing is we told him that his book is one of a kind, and I wouldn't tell him why, and he hasn't spotted it yet. But it's perfect because the background of Evans is the exact same color, and it looks like one of those little Hasbro correction stickers on the packaging, right? So it's almost impossible to find. If he's listening to this podcast, he's probably going to run to his book and go, "Oh, there it is," right? But
Yeah,
he
but
had
that
no
just increased the value of that thing tremendously.
Right?
So, I mean, how much between the two of you, knowing the breadth of the line and knowing that prior to that, maybe you were more personal collectors in what you were acquiring and accumulating for yourselves rather than completionists, knowing that at one point you'd have to do a comprehensive archive. How much of this stuff did you own versus how much of the stuff did you not have direct access to at the point you
correct,
decided to do it?
correct me if I'm wrong. I think Commander Cody is the only figure we actually had to buy because neither of us had a sample of it.
Yeah, so we borrowed some figures. Paul Mansell from Jedi Temple Archives lent me, I think maybe probably about 25 figures, mostly prequel stuff. So I just outed myself as an original trilogy snob. But um, so yeah, so Paul lent me some of the prequel stuff that had been missing, and there were some figures that we weren't certain about. For example, Commander Cody was one where we just wanted to rip it off a vintage card just so we knew what we were photographing was 100% vintage. So everything in here, everything in the book is it can be verified as a vintage figure because there are differences. Some of these figures are released earlier, some of them are released later. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had an accurate representation of what was on a Kenner classic Kenner card.
Are there things that, because this is so comprehensive, rarity and variant wise, that were the most difficult to track down and get your hands on?
I don't think anything was like truly difficult to get our hands on. Once again, this is where the community really came forward and helped us out. Our friend Anthony had a whole bunch of prototype stuff he was able to lend us. The guy who did our Matrix, Vincenelli, he had a complete carded collection, every variation, every US variation right from the inception of the line. So we just, we started off photographing the cards and then we're like, yeah, we should probably make it more comprehensive than it is. We contact Vince and it's like, hey, so how do you feel about sending your entire TVC carded collection across the country? And he was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And he packed it all up into giant
So
boxes.
you were gearing yourself up for having to have more of a conversation about that.
Yeah, well, everything's a learning lesson, right? Like you can plan and plan and plan, but then as you start actually working on it, that's where other things will come into play, and you're like, there's more we can do here, right? And the toy, like the carded photography, I think is like one of those special cases where we had access to a complete collection, and there's a lot of people who haven't seen every single card back variation. Even in the photo archive that we did leading up to this, we were trying to get all the variations, and with that we did all the US ones and all the Canadian ones, but we didn't go back and update them. So this is the first time, as far as I can think of, this is the very first time you've been able to see every single released card in one place.
I mean,
And
it's
there are some of them that are insanely, like, I think the Luke Jedi one, there were so many variations of it. I think it's I want to say VC. I'm flipping through the book right now. I should know this because
you've had nightmares about it.
yeah. So VC 23, it's got I mean, at least half a dozen, almost 10
I'm just going to hold up a
variations.
spread so people can see just how
And
incredible the book looks and just how comprehensive it is.
there's some of the packaging differences was one of them had a just didn't have a sticker for a really short period of time, and it had a different reverse on it. So and there's maybe dozens of them that are known to exist. So you know, getting some of those was a little bit more difficult. um the earlier ones, if you go into like the teens and 20s, they have the massive card splay because they were carried forward years going on.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
first Vader figure from the first wave. There's a ton of cards for that.
until it sort of settled down into the standardization of what the line would be.
right.
What are there any particular difficulties or tricks to photographing these carded figures? Because obviously you had to work out what your format was going to be in presentation for these.
The carded figures was not too bad. We So I used a couple different styles. I used speed lights, I used strobes, and I used just regular like video lights. So depending on what I was shooting, um, the cards weren't too bad. It was just making sure you didn't get glare on them. A little bit of post processing will clean all that up. What was difficult was some of the cards that have the foil on them, the reflective foil. And what I ended up doing on that was I ended up buying a reflector, cutting a hole in it, and basically shooting blindly, just kind of lining it up and sticking the reflector out front so that it would reflect the light back, and capturing the silver versus kind of usually gets a dull, almost dark and black border around those frame lines. So um, the cards weren't too bad. The vehicles were difficult. I ended up light painting to get the insides of the vehicles. Um, so like the slave one is a really good example. There were a couple shots, and the Falcon is one too, but on the slave one, I wanted to show.
If I find that page, if you have the page number in front of you,
Yeah,
if
let
you're
me
flipped
see
there.
if I can, and the
Wanna-
ATAT. Let me see.
Yeah, because the lighting on all of the figures and sets is incredible in the photography, because anyone who's trying to photograph toys knows how easy it is to get, oh well, you just can't see that, or
Yeah, it's page 300. Um, so with the slave one, there's a little spot. It's kind of the center of the page next to the canopy windshield. Um, there's a spot where you can put Boba Fett's backpack because the figure won't fit into the pilot seat.
right.
Um, and being able to show that, and when you're trying to shoot it, it's difficult to do. So we end up doing is we ended up light painting it, just kind of getting some light in there, painting it, and having a long exposure so that it would fill in. Same thing with the Falcon, and the interiors are difficult to photograph.
That Republic gunship.
Yeah, the gunship,
Yeah.
same thing. That was light painted so that the back wasn't darkened out, so you could see those the missiles on the rear side.
I mean, the thing that again is just great about going through the book is that every page is a treat. There's something fun to look at on every single page you could flip to in
Yeah,
this,
that's one of
and
the
fun to
things.
read.
Yeah,
It's a great read too.
yeah, those are the two things we wanted you to be able to kind of see the stuff, and put figures in there so you can see how they would look, especially with the vehicles, and kind of pose them out to kind of inspire you to put them on your shelf that way. And also give you like really like little tidbits and facts from the designers and the marketing team that worked on the book, or on the line. Little things they put in there. Jocasta Nu, for example, is a really funny story. The Hasbro team I guess there was a huge demand from collectors. She was winning polls, and the Hasbro team was like, we don't want to make a a librarian, like an elderly librarian figure. Like, well, we don't want to do this. But she kept winning polls, and there was a fan demand, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll do it. And Brian Merton, who designed the figure, was having fun with it, and he's like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have fun with this. So what he ended up doing was, he ended up making what he called a force shush. So if you hold her finger up, she's kind of telling you, be quiet, you're in the library, kind of thing. So all these guys had fun designing the stuff, and they're fans just like the rest of us are who collect it.
I mean, it's there are certainly different paths that can be taken with a book like this. It could be strictly a photography book, like here's just a photo archive of everything that's been produced. There could be a behind the scenes book of here's the production, here's what went on in making all these lines. Here's just simple identifying information. Here's just information about variant weapons that you can find on this thing. To combine all of those things is what makes the book a great piece just to have as a collector who enjoys the line and the creation and what goes into making and crafting something like this, because there are, as you've detailed and spotlighted within the book and celebrated within the book, amazing creatives behind the scenes who are realizing these things. When it comes down to the sculpt, when it comes down to what are the paint ops, when it comes down to the card art, all of these different disciplines that go in to creating this mass market toy that ultimately has to sell if it's going to be considered a success, and ostensibly be a toy that folks will either as kids want to play with or as adults want to play with and collect. So there's so many different factors that these creatives are beholden to, and then still to come out the other side of it with this, as it's great that you're able to celebrate them as well through the book. Was that a big thing going in to make sure that this was, because you could take the easier way out and just go, we're going to just take photos of everything and this is going to be a photo archive?
No, we couldn't do that. Right from the very beginning, we had said that the content, the written content, the photography, the layout, all of it was important. Not one element was more important than the other. Everything had to work in conjunction. Like, so if you wanted to read a story, it had to be there. If you wanted to see behind the scenes, it had to be there. If you wanted to just look at toy photography, it had to be there. Like, everything had to be there. It's like there's taken the easy way out. Yeah, we could have, but we wanted to make a book that we would be proud of, right? And that hopefully would be a book that the people who own it are very happy to have, and they always find something new in it to look at. So there was never a time where we're like, well, what can we do that's less work? It was always, what can we do to make it better?
And so if you had a year of this process ahead of time, where you're just sorting out, okay, this is our plan to do it, this is when we're getting all our ducks in a row, to
Yeah.
then have that moment when you also know we're going to do this via Kickstarter. That's the big trial of, oh, we want to do it. Folks we've talked to seem excited about it, but this is the real test of whether anyone wants this thing to happen, because you surely need that Kickstarter to make it happen, because this is not a slight book. This is this is a beautifully crafted book, and it shows. So, what was your biggest point of, boy, I hope this happens, I hope this works?
I think it was probably, I don't think it was early on. I think the Kickstarter started off really well, and it was it performed very strongly, and it wasn't a matter of okay, I hope this happens. I think it's like, oh crap, what are we gonna do to, like, we've met all our stretch goals.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do next? Like, what's the, like, what do we do? And so when it, we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we can add on, because we had blown through our stretch goals pretty quickly. And so I think that was a
It's a
big,
good panic call to have.
yeah, and that's really where the first bit of panic started, and then I think later on it was just a little bit of the pandemic hit, and it was the trials of self-publishing is I think the best way you could put it, where anything that could go wrong went wrong. And I mean, down to when we had the books delivered, um, they misscheduled the delivery. When we had our slipcases come in, they were in a depot 30 minutes from me, and then they ended from our warehouse, and then they ended up sending them to Dallas.
Makes sense.
I mean, just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And so I think those hiccups along the way were more of a oh crap thing to us than kind of the pre-planning, because I think we're pretty tidy going into it. It's just as it evolved and as things started coming together, and sometimes you don't have control over a printer in Hong Kong, and whether or not paper is there ready to go, or if it's 30 days late because there's a paper shortage, things like that.
Yeah, those phone calls where they go, well, we know this is your schedule, but this is what's actually going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
how did
even
the pandemic affect the actual production process? Were there any things that the pandemic affected as far as just you putting the book together, let alone the printing and delivery process?
A little bit on the travel side. So uh, it was interviewing people. Obviously, interviewing someone face to face is a lot easier. You can show them things in person. So some of the interviews, you have to go through email versus being able to do it in person. Um, I think some of the production stuff, it, Dave is now not able to come to the U.S. because he's in Canada, so there's a travel ban. So photography is an issue now. We're not splitting the photography, or parcels are being delayed. So Dave was doing some of the editing, and we had shipped a monitor from the U.S. here. Basically, it was a color accurate monitor, so that way we were both using the same monitor, both looking at the same thing, and it ended up being lost for a year.
yeah.
Did it come with the slip covers?
Showed up. The day
Yeah.
it showed up, I was expecting Rich was sending me the Galaxy Edge Millennium Falcon, and it came sooner than I thought. And I'm like, "Hey, Rich, so the Falcon's here." And he's like, "I haven't sent it yet." Oh, there's a giant box here. It must be the Falcon. And so I open it up, and like I'm talking to him on the phone, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe what's in here." And there it was. No one knew where it was. Like they couldn't
So it was just off the grid, just not
disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, they had given up on it.
Was it still sealed? So it hadn't been opened
Yeah.
anywhere. It just was sitting somewhere until someone went, "Well, we should take that.
Yeah,
Deliver that thing."
Yeah. Didn't Canada Customs send you a letter apologizing and said, "Hey, we've had this"?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird. It's like, but that's the thing. And we can laugh about it now. It's like, no matter what we did, we'd always get the hardest way to get it. Like there was always a roadblock. There was always a hiccup. And it's a learning lesson because we've never done this before. But it even went as far as going to Celebration, because of the issues we had with getting the books to Georgia in the first place. We're like, geez, Celebration's only a few days. If there's a hiccup, we're there and we don't have any books. So we decided we're just going to drive across the US from Georgia to California. So we rented a large van to do that. We loaded up all our stuff, and it was great. We're making good time the entire thing. Then we get to Arizona, and the air conditioner dies. And so we have 2 states to go through, and it was like 105 degrees in the high desert. And what could you do? You couldn't open the windows to cool down because it's just going to be hot air coming in. So it's everything, absolutely everything. And
but you were making memories.
Yeah, well, that's just it. As I say, we can laugh about it now, but if it could go wrong, it went wrong, and then we had to learn to adapt and move on. So yeah, that's part of the adventure that's so great. I think it's, the stuff that we learned and how we adapted to challenges as they came about.
And just persevering through it, I think is the big thing. We I think it would have been easy just to fold it in and just say, hey, we ran into issues. This is not gonna, uh, I've seen Kickstarter campaigns where they do that. They're like, hey, sorry, this can't happen. It's not gonna happen. It's whatever, and start issuing refunds. And we're just like, no, we're gonna make this happen. It may take a little bit longer, but we're gonna deliver on everything, and we're gonna make sure it's the best quality. And that was our thing, is we wanted to make sure that when people got the book, and they felt just how heavy and dense and just packed full of photos and information it was, that they felt that it was worth the wait.
Is there any point where it did seem its lowest, or emotionally you were just, I don't know if we can I don't know if I can deal with this many setbacks. This is ridiculous.
Oh, we've probably so we've there's probably a couple times where we threatened to choke each other, if we saw each other in person. Yeah, I
So
mean,
score one for the pandemic being in it.
yeah, no, we've had a pretty good relationship, Dave and I, because we worked together previously on a photo archive, so we were able to be pretty honest with each other about certain things, about where we are. And yeah, we definitely, there were some lows where, like, okay, this is gonna, it's gonna take 3 months before we get something back, because the printer is backed up, or factories are closed because of COVID. So they're not going to be able to get us something for 3 months. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of stress, but I think that we had a good relationship, and being able to kind of spitball ideas and figure out how we handle this really helped us.
Not to mention, I don't think there was ever a point where we're both equally frustrated on any given day. So one of us would be frustrated about something, but the other one's like, no, we can get past this. And then vice versa. It's like, the next day it's like the other guy's having a hard time,
Yeah.
they're getting positive reinforcement. So there was the balance in that. Like, I don't think there was any days where both of us were really frustrated about any given thing. And that really helped too. So like, you guys see the light at the end of the tunnel. And every time something did go right, we were one step closer. And so, yeah, it was a long road, and there was definitely the ups and downs, but I think the ups outweigh the downs in a lot of ways, because we learned so much throughout the entire process of this. Moving forward, there's so many more things we know how to do now. So we can factor those into
Volume 2.
future.
Volume
Well, actually, no. In the thing with volume 2 is, though, is while we're talking about this book, we had to determine, when are we going to stop it, right? Is it going to be 2010 to 2013? Is it going to just go until it hits the printers? And what we decided is, like, we would do the first 10 years, right? So that meant that we knew that there's going to be a volume 2. If it was well received, we would continue and do a volume 2. So that always being a part of the focus really helped a lot too, and gave us a clear vision on what to do with this book, because we knew that volume 2 would carry on from that.
Well, we talked about, some of the low points. What are some of the nicest surprises you've had during the process? What are the doors that opened up to you that you never expected would be open?
Um, I know. I think you're thinking about this. Someone purchased the book from us,
Oh yeah.
and I almost, like, I we can't say who it was, but just seeing the name, I was absolutely blown away. And I called Dave, and I'm like, did you just see? And he's like, no. And he looked at it, he goes, oh my God, no, it's not. And, like, we went through, did a little bit of research, and we were just like, yeah, it is. And we were just we were absolutely blown away by some of the people who purchased the book. I think that was a high, is some of the word of mouth, the feedback, and everyone saying that they were really happy with it, and it was worth the wait. and it was just really rewarding to hear that from everyone after. You know, you kind of, like I said, you go through your ups and downs, and then kind of when you're done and you deliver on the promises that you made, and everyone's happy with it, it was definitely a high for us.
And there's, you know, that elation you get after a multi-year process of something like this, of holding a physical object in your hand, going, it's done. Oh, here it
Yeah.
is. This thing exists. Finally, this hypothetical thing that just sort of existed in our heads for a bit, and our aggravation for a long bit, is now a thing that, you know, is out there in the world, and we can say we did that rather than we're doing this.
And I had a good feeling about it, and you know, having your nose kind of in between the pages or in front of the monitor for a couple of years, and then getting your first physical copy, you just kind of like, okay, you don't know what to think. But when I showed my wife and she flipped through it, and she goes, and she's kind of looking at me, she goes, okay, this is kind of good.
But
At
isn't his
that
name
point,
Evans?
no.
No, that was
um,
the day I read it for the first time.
yeah.
I had it in my hands. I turned to the page and I take a photograph and I send it to Steve. I'm just like, and he's like, my name's spelled wrong.
I forgot who said that. Maybe it was a Neil Gaiman quote, or you know, one of those quotes where just, you know, inevitably as an author, the first page you open up to in your own book will be the one that has the typo.
Yeah.
There it was.
Yeah, that's it.
So are there any doors that opened up as far as on the creative team for you as fans that you were surprised opened up? Because, you know, it also, on something like this, you know, a company can choose not to be cooperative. A company can choose to, you know, try and shut something like this down. This is obviously dealing with a property that, you know, when Steve did his books, didn't have to deal with when, you know, Lucasfilm was not part of Disney. So there are a lot of pitfalls that potentially could be here, or roadblocks that could be thrown down. As far as the opposite of that, as far as, again, doors that were opened up, are there any that you were delighted or were absolutely essential in your eyes to making it the book that it wound up being?
Yeah, there were some people who I was very happy would comment on things. And because more than just interviewing people and getting the story, there's verifying the story, right? And that's a very different thing. So when you're talking to people who are remembering what they did at their day job, you know, in 2003, they're going to remember it one way. But is that necessarily the truth? Right. So there's a lot of people who weren't even working at Hasbro anymore, who, when I approached them, I said, "Hey, I'm just verifying some facts. Will you take some time to talk to me?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so, like, at the end of the day, for when we were doing the verification process on the book, we ended up speaking to virtually every single person who worked on the Star Wars line in one way or another. You know, and it might just be a quick question to find out one thing, or some of them were very open. They're like, there's stuff that came to light because we were trying to verify something. And they're like, "Yeah, that's kind of what happened, but what about this?" And we're like, what? And it's like, so some really great stories came out. And there are some things that, you know, we knew about forever, and there are some things that were big surprises. Like, I thought it was really cool how, like, the current team, or virtually the current team, but like Patrick Snyder's team, they were able to go to do the Rise of Skywalker stuff and get things out without spoiling the movie. Right, like having Luke's X-wing show up, and then having a Luke X-wing figure come out that just has like a cavity that will fit Rey's buns into it. You know, having an R2 that came out in the wave before that, so you'd have that for Poe Dameron's X-wing. You know, and having all these things hit retail before the movie came out, and nothing was spoiled. And like that, I think that's absolutely phenomenal. The way that they were able to come up with, you know, a strategy to pull that off, and no one was aware of what was going on. The toys came out and you had no idea that there were spoilers right there.
Rich, anything on that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think you know, once the book was released, I think the team that the Hasbro team now, that's currently working on the line, them seeing it and using it as a resource, and telling us that hey, we've got this in our war room, and people use it to go through and use it as a resource is I mean, I think that's an incredible thing for us, and we hope it opens the door for an even closer relationship in volume 2. One of the things that we wanted to carry from Steve's book into this book was, we had approached Disney about it, but there's just I don't think there was an interest, or maybe they just didn't see our vision for this. We wanted to include some of the photography from the movies, because some of the things we talk about are specific to a scene, or one of the figures is based on on an actor who's got the camera pans and don't blink you'll miss him kind of thing, but Hasbro would design a head sculpt after them. And so we're hoping that with the second volume we can incorporate some of that. We're hoping that it opened the door for that kind of stuff, and it seems like it may have.
Well, it's good to have a proof of concept that people can look at and go, oh,
Yeah,
this is what they were talking about. Oh, okay.
yeah, and
Now we get it.
And it's understandable. It's a couple of guys self-publishing something, and we understand the hesitation, and so hopefully they can appreciate what we put out there, and we can work a lot closer with both Disney and Hasbro on future projects.
So is there any piece of information that was a complete revelation to you that you ran across during this that stuck with you the most? Like, wow, I'm glad we know this and we're able to put this in here.
Oh, maybe some of the unproduced stuff.
What of the unproduced stuff would you want?
That probe droid, I think everyone wants the pod a lot of people have commented that the pod that the probe droid fits into is something that everyone would have wanted. And for me, I think the completion of the 3-packs is another thing. I think we're like 3 or 4 3-packs away from having the original Kenner line matched up 1-to-1. So the Bespin set, the creature set, and I think there's another hero set. I think
One with Leia.
yeah, the one with Leia would be something that would I'd love to see done.
Of the ones that I really would have liked Akbar's command share.
Oh yeah.
If
That was-
only to give, because I'm going to pull him off my desk right now because he's a perfect desk companion. Right now he's my karaoke Akbar, which is great and all. I like that, he's got a mic. That's just his long mic. But finding out about that and going, oh, now finally that makes sense as why he had the most odd pack-in.
Yeah, just the screen, but no chair. Yeah.
It's a weird consolation to push that through the rest of the way, going, well, we can't get the chair. Can he hold the screen?
I think he would have been fine with just the Kenner accessory, the kind of the magic wand he comes with, or the karaoke mic without the screen. But yeah, I guess they felt the screen was important.
It's amazing how many of the figures you can pose doing karaoke if you just go for also more karaoke machines should be like that. Just a handheld.
Oh, for sure.
Make things so much easier. I'm surprised. Well, I'm hoping one of the things that comes out of this book is maybe some customizers will be inspired to make a command share for that thing to slot into.
Funny enough that you say that, there is someone who has created a command share, and I don't know if you think it's a 3D print version, but we actually, if you go to page 324, you can check it out on there. We kind of started dabbling with some of the stuff, and so the place set for the Jabba's palace with the Han and Carbonite,
Beautiful photography, by the way.
it was missing the tables and glasses. So and the big vase to the right there. And so we had someone 3D print those for this chapter break, and there's another chapter break that was done in between the 2010 line and the 2018 line, where we had a Snoke chair. So I think there's a lot of people who are making those accessories, and
I just realized that as you were talking about that, it would have been much easier to go through the beautiful set of prints to
oh,
show
that's
that
right.
off
There you
rather
go.
than holding up the page break. That's just me. That's all on me. So here, and there we go. That's a little bit easier to hold up.
Yes, so the tables are 3D prints, and the vase and the food there,
And then the
um,
Snoke is also,
and the Snoke throne is also Hole in the Ground Productions custom made that and painted it for us.
I
And
mean,
Alex
how
from
much of it
Toy
has
Arc.
changed knowing that, you've done this for so many years, this toy photography. What kind of a game changer is 3D printing and
Oh, it's
having the potential of having like, oh, the prop you really want to
yeah,
use available?
I think it's huge. I think so a lot of the photographers, we hired out photographers to do our chapter break prints. We did a couple of them, but we really wanted this to be a community project, and working at Tamasha Nations, I had worked with some amazing photographers, and there's absolutely no way that I would be, either of us would be able to create some of these things like that Snoke photo, or there's a Bespin photo. There's there's just some of the creative ideas. Kid Anakin training with Obi-Wan, with a Vader shadow, kind of foreshadowing the future. There are so many incredible photos, and these elements, these 3D printed elements, absolutely make this stuff possible.
So what would you want? Just your personal collections. If you want something 3D printed, what do you want 3D printed to have for your own personal display of your figures?
Oof.
Anything. Sky's the limit.
I would have, originally I would have said the Jabba stuff, but Hasbro with the throne room they just put out on Pulse a couple months ago. I think they completely, with all the little accessories they included with that would meet everything that I would have wanted. So yeah, I don't know. I think that was my number one on my wish list, and so I have no idea at this point. They've checked that off the list.
Dave, anything come to mind for you?
Oh yeah, I I am unapologetic on how much I love the prequels, and Coruscant blows my mind. So anything Coruscant related would be cool, but if I could have like that little ledge with all the billboards behind it that Zam Wessel was at, and just lock her ship into it, I'd be beside myself. So happy.
Now that you mentioned a prequel thing, it's probably maybe not the top of my list, but it'd be nice to have a full Jedi Council room.
Oh, for sure.
Uh, little cyclorama, little that you could put outside the windows for that to sort of fill it out. But then you could swap in your figures because that council changed all the time.
Mhm.
Even the Palpatine's office, that's another thing that I've seen people starting to 3D design.
With the
There's
window
just,
window.
yeah, the window. So there's
That would
a
be
ton of stuff.
described as the action feature on the box, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It has to be.
Featuring explosive window.
Yeah, just like the micro collection Bespin Gantry, how it flew open.
Now I want to see that set. I want to see the Palpatine's office set with the window. Action window. I knew it was going to trip me up eventually.
You have like a spring-loaded little like observation seat for Darth Sidious to jump at your other Jedi figures.
Oh. And he does the flip.
Freezing spring.
He
Oh
does the
yeah.
flip as
Oh,
he,
that's so awesome.
he actually launches in a flip.
That would be perfect.
So, I mean, are there any, any figures then? Like, this is something I normally ask at the end of Force 5, but for you two, if there's something that's not been produced yet, what's your sort of holy grail of I wish they would do this character or this figure or this variation? What was the thing you would want in the vintage collection?
Like this is excluding the Tanika sisters.
Yeah. Explain. I know what you're talking about, but explain the probably still never going to happen New Hope.
It makes no sense. I know that everyone's like, no, we can't make Tanika sisters, but you just change the pictures on the card and they're just calling like, Susie Space Girl and like, Rebecca Jones.
Well, remember Space Girl, they're sisters.
Yeah, well, one of them's married maybe, but there must be a way. There must be a way to convince lawyers that, okay, we can do this.
They did an Adidas commercial.
So these are two actor models that were essentially day players in the cantina scene in A New Hope that did not have any real contract that was worked out as far as clearances that just about every other Star Wars actor was worked out with as far as likeness rights and so forth and usage. And so what they were used in a card set, referenced in a card set in what, the early 90s, 1990, 91, and the child of one of the actresses said, oh, look, you're in this card set. And she investigated and found out there was no contract that existed that would allow Lucasfilm to do that, and sort of just sent a friendly sort of shot across the bow letter to them, informing them that, yeah, you don't have the rights to do this. Maybe we should work this out. And the ultimate solution, it seemed at the time, was Lucasfilm going, well, let's just cut them out entirely and just not grant the ability to use them, rather than get into the muddle of trying to sort this out and open up that can of worms. Well, so they've been untouchable as far as figures. And
we're in the weren't they in the C3PO cantina, the micro machines? I think they were included in that in the
Gloob, release
in the 90s. And they also had them, someone reprised them in the I don't know if you remember the Adidas cantina commercial with Beckham and Snoop Dogg. They were in that. So, as Dave mentioned, that there's got to be a way, use a different likeness or something else on the card and make it happen. And there's actually an example of that in the book where Dave can talk about that.
The death squad commander guy, the Imperial Naval, I forget what his modern name is, but the death squad commander figure,
VC-94
designer threw his own face on it. But it just occurred to me while we were having this conversation, how we can get the Tanika sisters, and I want to be the first one to say this. So when it happens, everyone goes, oh yeah, that happened right here at that moment. Filoni and Favreau, just put them in The Mandalorian. Totally different actresses, exact same costumes.
Oh, I thought you meant put Filoni and Favreau as them
in the costume,
in the costumes in the cantina.
Maybe for San Diego. But there's the solution. Just
which is also fine. Whatever gets them back in.
If EV-99 can be in the Creature Cantina, why can't the Tanika sisters?
Your VC-94.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so there was a licensing issue with the actor, so one of the designers used his face. Problem solved.
Yep.
So, but they're largely cropped out of the special edition. The Tanika sister, wasn't that also another one of the solutions? Was to sort of really cut down the amount of on-screen time they have? Aren't they just now basically relegated to the background of the scene? You basically get a hint of them in the background rather than prominent as part of that montage of faces around the cantina that the original edition was.
Yeah, and they cut their dance number out too, which I was very disappointed about.
I mean, any dance number that's cut out of the movies, I'm really disappointed about.
No, I know there should be more dancing in Star Wars.
I mean, and they added one to Jedi, but didn't add them in.
Right?
Yeah.
Failure.
Transition them over to that scene. Maybe they'll show up in the new holiday special.
That's a dance scene there.
So so we've got Dave, Rich, what is your wish they would do?
I think that for me, when they started pitching the line to Lucasfilm to bring back the classic Kenner cards, they had redone the original characters from A New Hope, so Han, Leia, Obi-Wan, Luke. I think I would love to see those get remade and kind of modernized, because some of those figures are they haven't been re-released, and uh, it's time. I would love to see what a new Luke Skywalker would look like with the face print technology.
A definitive
Um,
farm boy Luke?
yeah, same thing with Leia. That Leia definitely needs an upgrade. But besides figures, I want a Death Star. I want a big giant Death Star like they did with the barge and the Falcon, and I want it all based on A New Hope. I want all the rooms. I want it so that I can put the Falcon near it and have the docking bay. I want the control room where you can put C-3PO and R2. The
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 full conference
doors.
room?
Oh yeah, no Emperor's throne room, because it was not in A New Hope. The command room where they they came in with the red, the flashing lights on the red panels. Everything. That's my dream set is a nice massive Death Star set,
How big do you envision that being?
as big as it takes. um I you know I think,
Let's use sail barge as like your current size of a HasLab as far as on the extreme side.
yeah,
Are you thinking like 2 sail barges?
yeah, probably. I think maybe a sail barge and a half, so you go a little bit taller. The micro collection version from Kenner did in the 80s, I think would be something
A
cool,
good
like a little,
start.
yeah, a little modular way to do it if that's what they decided. But yeah, all those little features is something that I'd love to see. That's I never had the Death Star growing up. I had the Falcon, and I think by the time um it for when playsets were released, it was the Ewok Village for me. So they had kind of retired the Death Star. So I'd always wanted a Death Star.
The it was sort of sad looking through the book at the vehicles section and realizing that that's seems to be a thing that's been phased out of the vintage collection and the 3 3/4 line outside of the HasLabs.
I don't know about that. Like, they granted we already had the big Millennium Falcon, but that came out again.
Right.
We had the Imperial assault tank. We had the troop transport. Luke's X-wing on TVC for the first time. Poe Dameron's X-wing. And
But all
there's
those releases you're talking about now are a few years old, meaning as far as new announcements where you would think that,
Yeah,
oh, is there
it
something
has
coming out
slowed
from
down.
Kenobi? Is there something coming out from Mandalorian? Creatures as well. Like
Yeah,
you would think like a
oh yeah,
blurg
Blurgs, right?
would be a
S-
slam dunk easy, like
speeder bike.
that's the only thing that's coming out, we're gonna get a blurg because it's the Mandalorian and that's like the creature from the Mandalorian. The
Yeah,
idea that those don't seem to be, for whatever, I'm sure the economic concerns and where the market exists right now is certainly playing into that, but sort of seeing the writing on the wall as a potential of maybe that's just not a thing that they're interested in doing anymore, and the Black Series is too big a scale for those to economically make sense either.
Blue Leader just came out last year, right? Is my math wrong on that?
yeah.
I think
No,
last
Blue
year.
Leader, what was just released. I think
Was that just released or just finally arrived last year?
Well, I saw it at
yeah,
Toys R Us last year, so that's what I'd gauge by. But also, we have the play sets too, right? Like the Mandalorian play set is pretty cool. Like,
The
it's
Cantina?
simple, fits in a small box, but it's still pretty cool. I like it.
the
But I'll tell you
blockade.
this: what? Oh yeah, and the blockade. But you know what I would like to see Hasbro do more than anything else right now? It's just I want them to give Han Solo a year like they gave Luke Skywalker a couple years back, where they just redo all of them, because like every TVC Han except for the one from Solo comes from parts that were made for a 2004 figure, right? Like, it's just time, retire all that old stuff and just come up with one definitive
Can we have the year of
sculpt.
Chewbacca alongside the year of
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Han?
Oh, could you imagine like a newly sculpted Chewbacca? Because Chewie's just as old as Han is, right? Like, well, toy wise, not obviously movie wise, but yeah, like make a new Chewie would be fantastic. But more than that, the Han, I would kill to have a collection of Hans where he doesn't have a floating holster and he doesn't have really super skinny hips. And he's got contemporary articulation and, just redo them all. So your Bespin Han is the definitive Bespin Han and Star Wars Han is your Star Wars Han. Like,
So you can get him into a really deep firing the blaster pose.
Yeah.
yeah. Like how great would that be?
It was looking at the thought this went out of my head. Lingered too long on thinking about it. I was thinking about a database I would love to see, because the other part that fascinates me, speaking about the outdated molds or just molds that have been in use for so long, is I would love to see a breakdown of, here's a leg, here's how many figures have used this leg sculpt, here's how many figures have used the chest, here's how many figures have used this accessory. Breaking it down that way, I think, would be fascinating, just as a production bit of curiosity of showing how much innovation goes into reuse in making these things economical as well. Like, you've seen this holster before on all of these characters. You've seen
Yeah.
these hips on all of these characters. These pair of pants should look familiar.
That was something that Dan Curto used to do in photo archives. I don't know if you remember that far back, but like he would do a lineup of figures and he would sort of highlight the different pieces so you could see where it all came from.
Where the
And
reuse was.
Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. So yeah, it'd be cool if we could see that happen again.
Can that be a stretch goal on volume 2 of the book? Is just a poster that shows all of the different reuse or a fold out?
That would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And it's interesting because Hasbro's gotten so much more creative with that, because the Lando legs that they just used for so the Lando legs were reuse of were they new legs, Dave? Or were
they're new for Lando, then reused for Lobot, and for Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, so Bib Fortuna has a skirt, and they were like, well, why create new legs when he's got a skirt? Let's just reuse the Lando legs, even though he's got the bell bottoms and lifts.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
who's to say Bib Fortuna didn't wear that underneath his?
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
don't
yeah.
know.
Who says he doesn't go out to the club after and just,
Drinks
it's
back Colt
it's too
45.
heavy to be wearing the full on robes.
Yeah.
Those are his work robes. Those
more
underneath
ceremonial than
of the party pants.
I don't think he's got pants on under there.
You might be right. Who knows?
You don't know what his comfort level is. You don't know
Well,
how
I
good
know
the
he knows how to
AC is.
escape a sail barge like no one's business.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so is that him and Max Rebo just
No, he's very clear on reading who gave the other one the ride. Who was the one who
Right?
went, yeah, we got to get out of here.
A little wink,
yeah.
wink, nod, nod. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, something's happening upstairs.
Let's just walk out this door backwards.
Yeah. Your skiff or mine.
It's like
Yeah.
Homer through the bushes.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe they were on a beer run. Maybe that's what we don't know. Maybe they were off at Mos Espa, and they had taken one of the skiffs because they had run out of something. Maybe they were at a dip. And we got to go get some dip. Max, you want to come? Yeah, I need a break anyway. Let's go.
You don't want to run a dip on a sail barge.
I need to pick up some death sticks. So death sticks and dip run. And clearly Max made it out a second time.
Yeah.
All indications. So
who would have known, right?
yeah, he's a musician. I think he knows which way the wind is blowing when it comes to a situation. I think he knows when to get out of there.
Yeah, timing. It's all about timing.
Yeah. Or he was just doubling up on gigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe he just had another show he had to play.
That brings up, I really wish there was a Max Rebo set in the vintage collection. If any time seemed right to come out with a new set, particularly next year.
Yeah.
That there's been no wind blowing as far as hints of that with the Book of Boba Fett. Like, yeah, we're gonna do a definitive Max Rebo.
So
We're
the
actually gonna put
question
the
is,
horn on the back of his piano.
are you
Yeah,
gonna
that
are
would
you
be
gonna
so
have
cool.
Psy Snoodles with the special edition look, or are you gonna have her with the original release look?
See this thing, swappable lips.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's actually okay. There we
Yeah,
go.
I mean, it can handle both. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really the only major change between the two of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe proper scale, because aren't they supposed to be far shorter? Like the ones that were out of
Yeah.
scale was the Power of the Force 2, and like Droopy was way bigger than he was
Droopy
supposed to
was
be,
really
right?
tall. Yeah.
I really want Droopy McCool to be super articulated, like unprecedented articulation on him, so you could get him in the same Han Solo pose. That would be awesome.
With his instrument,
Yeah,
sort of
totally.
gesturing to the crowd.
Yeah.
Like that's his moment, right? When he plays with the crowd.
You can get 1 foot up on a monitor, so he's like the guys in Iron Maiden. That would be awesome,
Really, you do the Jedi rock set. That should have
right?
been the
Oh,
proper
totally.
Jedi rock set.
Yeah, yeah. And then you get the Yuzum, right? And that would be pretty cool too.
Yeah, no, I mean it's that I would love that as a HasLab. Just give
Yeah.
us the full band, the full Max Rebo band. You're doing the throne room.
Yeah.
Give us the band.
And I mean you've had Max in modern entertainment, so there's no, there's no question of, oh well, it was Return of the Jedi, and well, now you've got a 40th anniversary, now you've got, they're in modern entertainment, so it checks all the boxes. So yeah, I would love to see those two. I think you're right, that's probably the one missing element from all of the Jabba environments that they've been making is the band.
And
Yeah.
speaking of just having a more easily available Jabba at this point.
Yeah, and I think they were hinting at that when they at Celebration. They had been putting the old Walmart throne room into the set and showing what it looks like, and they put the Kenner one in there and showed what it looks like, and then they brought the Jabba from the barge and put it in there to show kind of what it looks like. So I think they're hinting at it, that it I'm hopeful at least.
That would be the yeah, I was surprised by how little of the Kenobi characters we're getting in vintage as opposed to retro. And it
Not
seems
that
like
there's- I love the retro stuff, so I'm still pretty stoked about that.
yeah, but
like,
I would love it in both. It just
Yeah.
seems, that do you think the days of the vintage collection are numbered? How are you
Oh,
feeling?
I don't think so. Like, look at that TVC Vader, like the Dark Times Vader.
Oh, it
That's
looks
the best Darth
incredible.
Vader they've ever made, right? He can hold his lightsaber in his right hand. Like that in and of itself is awesome.
Also, to have swappable hands again, like
Yeah,
any of
right?
that, anything like that just astounds me. It's like, oh yeah, you can do that. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you doing that. Give us options.
What's more is like we're still seeing blisters on the cards when like Hasbro has revealed their GI Joe line is all plastic free, their Marvel line is all plastic free, and somehow TVC's made it this far. So I think maybe they realize that the blister is a part of
The product.
so
Right.
it might be able to skirt past all that. And I think as long as people are buying TVC and not waiting for things to go discount, they're going to keep making TVC.
But I think interest is cyclical too, because when we started the book at that point, the Black Series was on such a high that people were asking us, well, why do a vintage collection book? Why aren't you guys doing a Black Series book? And if you kind of look at it now, the Black Series is kind of on a lull. The interest on that seems to be kind of dying down, whereas everyone is super excited about vintage collection because they're putting out cool characters. It's relevant to what the entertainment is showing. They're putting out vehicles to go alongside the stuff and play sets, and so they're doing the world building thing where you're not seeing that with Black Series. So it seems to kind of be shifting, and it's a typical thing in toy collecting where they'll do something cool in Black Series, and then maybe the interest for TVC will wane. But I think it's popular right now, and I think it's got a more of a grip on the collecting community than the Black Series does.
it certainly seems within the last year of releases that they've finally arrived at a parity between the Black Series
Hmm.
and the Vintage Collection in design and execution, where you can't go, oh, but the character looks better in the Black Series. Like right now, the face sculpts are amazing in both of them. You look at the Vintage Collection, you look at that Bo-Katan, and it's stunning
Yeah.
how good the sculpt and the paint work together to go, I'm not missing anything if I get it in this scale. This is super articulated. The accessories are great. This looks like the character. Whereas in the past, it would have been, well, the Black Series, because of the larger scale, you get everything that looks overall better and you have more articulation just because they can pull it off better in that scale. I don't think you're missing out anything. This seems like a golden period for,
Yeah.
we've reached like the height of what we can do
And
manufacturing these.
and oh, by the way, it also interacts with this playset and also interacts with this vehicle. And so I think, you're right, it has reached a pinnacle. And now these figures, which are comparable to the 6-inch figures, are also interactive with other elements. You can go back 10 years and find a vehicle from something, because that's the longevity of
Are you
three
saying
and
we're
three
not going
quarter
to get
Star
an
Wars.
AT-AT in the Black Series scale?
Oh, I don't know. But the snow speeder is they put out is pretty awesome. But this just the size of the stuff is just not. It's I just don't think it's possible. So I
Yeah,
think
I mean, the thing about, when you hear about what Kenner's plans were when they saw what was on the horizon for Star Wars and where they got excited, was knowing how integral the vehicles
yeah.
were into displays and what kids would want to play with and what was exciting about that world alongside the characters. And that's one of the best scales for realizing it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That and
Uh,
micro collection, of course.
yes, it's
We'll
RIP.
yeah.
Where's the definitive micro collection book or pamphlet? Where is the
Pamphlet. Well, Jensen Duncan did a fairly decent one. Maybe someday there will be a bigger one. Who's to say? But yeah, like, man, I would love for them to go back and just add to that line. That would be so cool.
what would you want out of that line?
Everything.
Also incorporating all of the modern media as well.
Mhm.
What would be the first one you'd want? If you could say, we'll give
Well,
you one new micro set, what do you want?
I would want them to do a series of 6. So it's one from each of Lucas's 6, right? Just like one environment from each. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'd be happy with any of them, like
I
Theed
mean,
Hangar,
you can't set up that as a
Coruscant,
premise and then not say what your picks are from
Mustafar,
Melissa.
Creature Cantina,
Oh yeah.
uh, um,
Jabba's palace.
Jabba's Palace, of course, Jabba's Palace. And you see, Empire is the one that I couldn't see what they would do because they pretty much covered it in the micro collection in the original line, right? So they could add on
Dagobah.
to those sets. Yeah, but oh
They
yeah,
could they
Dagobah.
could
And they were going to do
produce it.
Dagobah too.
Yes, they
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
What
So
about
yeah, Dagobah, there you go. There's all 6.
or the Executor Bridge?
So I was yeah.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Oh, with all the bounty hunters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that'd be
Oh.
sick.
Well, all of you 3D printers out there who want to get a jump start on a new micro collection set, Dave just gave you plenty to do. Get on it.
And that's the interesting thing, is that there's really a paradigm shift happening with the 3D printing and what you're capable of doing now, and the printers are only getting better, and they're getting less expensive. They're coming to the point where you get a good design. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to, okay, well, my z-axis is doing this, and my temperature, I'm getting a thermal run, and it's getting to the point where it's kind of touch and go. And I have just would be really interesting to see how that affects toy making. I can see figures being the driving force behind a line, whereas vehicles and things like that are things that people share and swap files and print their own at home,
Well, I
just
mean,
because the cost.
you got, fans out there that are actively designing figures you never saw in the Kenner line, like folks like was it Stan Solo?
Yeah, Stan Solo.
Doing like an Ula and doing a Slave Leia and seeing that stuff that's out there, the characters that were never done in that style, or speaking of just adventures in 3D printing, have you ever seen that? Is it Mighty Jabba's Palace?
Yes. Yeah.
His account, and like printing out a full-size Jabba on
Lan-
his
yeah.
printer.
Landspeeder Luke is another guy who's has a subscription service, and I think every couple weeks he puts out new files, and they're meant to interact with the Black Series, and they can scale down to the 3 3/4 stuff, and the stuff he's doing is incredible. It's timely. You don't have to wait. If you see, I mean, it's pretty crazy. You'll see something you'll see Boba Fett's throne, and then couple days later he's got it designed, and you can print it at home.
Yeah,
um
or Jabba's Palace doing that 6 scale Max Rebo band.
yeah, that I
Uh,
watched that too. Yeah,
or was it Retro Blasting that's doing the Bespin playset,
yes,
but doing it based on the micro.
the Kenner style. Yeah,
Yeah. So what I would love 3D printing to get to a point where it is just set it and forget it, where it is just simple enough to where I know I won't screw it up. There's enough still shakiness in the technology and the failure
yeah,
rates that it's like, I don't know if I want to dive into that just yet.
yeah. It's close.
And it's a slippery slope. I think I would never come out of it also if I got a printer.
Oh, you just and it's funny because I think I got a printer right before we started the book,
Yeah.
and I had printed a couple things out and I sent it to Dave, and I haven't used it since. But man, I've been tempted. While we're working on it, I was just like, oh man, you're seeing all the people doing, some of the guys we talked about doing some of that amazing stuff, and they're printing it out life-size Java. It's like, whoa, I can do this, and
Maybe just
eh,
don't glue it together in your basement.
right. So, um,
Think of the future.
so yeah, so it, it's an incredible technology, and it's just it's been a couple of years since I kind of started following and getting into it, and it's even easier now than it was then. So it'll only get easier.
I mean, I did want to make sure that I highlighted. So right now, as far as the book, there is just the people can pick up the regular edition of the book
Correct.
if they just want the book, but the deluxe edition you all did is incredible. I didn't know what to expect. Even having seen the photos and descriptions, I didn't know what to expect. And opening it up, I mean, just seeing this, having a vinyl case as a kid, and having action figures as a kid in one of those cases, and seeing just how you capture that alone, seeing that shape alone was enough to set me off.
So for people who don't know, that is when the case came with a handle, and rather than putting a handle on a slipcase, what we did is we had a metal plate engraved with limited number, um, and
In
it's
that
in the
shape,
same.
and that would be
Yeah.
the little plastic handle you'd pull
Yeah.
out that was looped into the vinyl case. That would be your little carrying case for your
Uh-huh.
action figures, and you captured that as the number plate,
Yeah.
that shape on there. So that alone set me off. But then yeah, seeing the montage of the artwork that you assembled for the top of that slipcase, or cover. It's not really a slipcase because it sort of slips. It sets down inside.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
top opener.
It's a
It's
carry
a
case.
textbook. Yeah.
But and then it's like, okay, well, that alone was enough to make me happy. With what you realized, we've seen some of the prints in the portfolio that you did of the chapter photos that you were mentioning. So to have that as a little portfolio is beautiful.
And we designed those so they fit in an 8x10 frame. So like any 8x10 frame that you go and buy, you like standard, you can slip those in there and they look awesome on your wall. We've took it. There's a couple snaps on our website that you can see. They look really cool. It's like almost instant art gallery at home.
Dave, do you have one in here?
Yeah, I did the Mustafar one.
Show the Mustafar one. There.
What's Mustafar?
Well, some of us know. Now, what I love about that is those rocks.
He's a reflection of my monitor in it.
Those rocks were made for the Snake Eyes movie that just came out. I was working on that movie and I went over to the greens guys. I'm like, can I take these rocks? It's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And so I built this huge environment that was probably like 15 feet deep by 8 feet across. And I shot this much of it. But yeah, those are real movie rocks there.
So
They're not
finally, we get a
car rocks,
crossover
real movie rocks.
in the Star Wars and G.I.
G.I.
Joe
Joe.
lines.
Right? Those
This
are
is what
around
Hasbro was
the
afraid of.
Yeah, that's right.
So then seeing that, again, excited. Someone we haven't talked about,
Yes.
which I want you all to talk about, was, speaking of vintage Kenner and the
Yes.
inclusion, this poster. So can you describe the poster that I'm holding up and why is this so important?
That is important because the gentleman who photographed, I mean, if you grew up with Kenner Star Wars, you probably were drooling over the catalogs or the box photos, um, at the store. And Kim Simmons is the photographer from 1980 all the way up until 2000, who photographed every single Kenner box and photo, and he did that poster as part of a promotion for Return of the Jedi in the 80s. And we had and I mean, even the back of the cards, so the old Kenner cards, that yellow background that you would go and you'd circle, I want this one, you check this one, I have this one, you'd X this one, I don't like that character. Kim photographed that. So we had asked Kim to take some photos with us, and so I went out to Cincinnati and went to his studio, and we photographed, we recreated that the same way he would have done it back in the 80s. The dirt, he had me drag, the sand that's used in there is the same sand he used for all his photography in the 80s. He had me drag, 2 massive buckets out of his basement.
Nothing says professional photographer like saving all of your
Yeah,
different elements for
yeah, the
potential use in
foliage.
future shoots.
Yeah.
Yeah, the foliage on Endor, you'll recognize some of that from the original stuff. That's all reused. Some of the other elements are newly created, but he did them in the same way he would have done them
And if
back in the
anyone
day.
hasn't quite noticed it, it's swapping out with vintage collection
Yeah. So he recreated
figures.
that poster he did for the classic line using modern figures, and uh, basically reshot the photo.
I mean, it's yeah. Again, old collector feels.
Yeah. And that's
Looking at that.
that's really what the vintage collection is. It's basically, taking that old Kenner aesthetic and bringing that to, modernizing that, and that's kind of what we wanted to do with this book, and the things that we included with it were, kind of evoke those nostalgic feelings for collectors.
I mean, just opening up that slipcover and seeing the
The
figure insert,
Yeah.
and then looking at it going, I don't have some of those. Oh, geez. Now I'm jealous of the picture of figures in the insert. But the thing that probably, besides the poster and knowing what that involved, the coins. Tell me the story of when you decided to do the coins for this. So for anyone who doesn't know, so what, Power of the Force, the end of the Kenner line in the 80s.
Yeah.
They did a run where the figures would come with a collector coin. That was like the thing, like we know that the line is waning, but we want to incentivize you to pick these things up. Here are these metal coins with the character of the the figure you were buying on this coin, and collect all of those too. And then we saw those coins return for the 30th anniversary line in 2007.
Right.
Uh,
And so remember that oh crap, what are we gonna do? We've hit all our stretch goals.
right.
That's where the coins come in.
So whose idea were the coins?
I think that was Dave's idea. I think we were talking about, okay, can we do something like coins, and we're just like, I don't know, can we? You know, we're a little concerned about licensing, because we don't want to, we don't want to step on and anyone's toes with licensing. So we're, and they're just kind of like a throw in. Thank you guys for supporting the project, and here's a gift, a free gift, for supporting us, kind of thing.
And these
Uh,
were ones that did not receive coins. Also, vehicles did not receive coins
right.
in the original Kenner line or
So
the
those,
30th anniversary.
yeah, those three coins are characters. So they're made to basically interact with the old Kenner coins. Uh, and they're made at this, similar style. And they're three items or characters that were never a part of that Kenner line.
Two of which were available at that time. So the Slave One and the Jabba the Hutt are two of the three. So Jabba was considered a playset
Yes.
at that time. Although I would have loved to have seen a bubbled Jabba available. And the like I said, the Slave One, but the katana obviously being a modern thing, which did have a coined figure included in that
The
HasLab
yak
set.
face. Yeah.
With a
So,
wonderful variation.
which just now I kind of want these for all of the characters that we've seen in the vintage collection. I mean, what led to the choices of those three being the ones you chose for it? Was that just an internal discussion between you two, or
Yeah, I think it was, we looked at what hadn't been made. We looked at, kind of what was, I think, again, the timing was, it kind of dovetailed with the release of the katana. So we thought that would be a good inclusion. We thought Jabba would be a good inclusion because Jabba had never received a coin, and they were like, okay, how do we round this out? And it's like, oh, we could tell the story of Han Solo. He gets captured and ends up on the slave one, goes over to Jabba's palace, and then he's part of the battle of the Sarlacc pit. So it kind of tells the story of Han Solo in kind of an indirect way.
and so who did the it's my understanding there's a story behind the artwork on it and how the images were achieved for
Yeah.
these.
um, so those are all toy photos. Those are all toy photos that were line traced. The Slave One coin, it's really funny. I hadn't opened and photographed my Slave One yet, for the book, and I happened to be at my friend's house, and he had one hanging from his ceiling in the basement, and he's a big bodybuilder dude, and so I'm like, hey, is that the Slave One? I haven't opened mine yet. I really don't know what it looks like. And he's like, yeah, and he's like, here, let me take it down. So I'm like, hey, I was like, well, while you got it there, just hold it there. So he's holding on to it with a huge bicep, holding the Slave One, and I just snapped the photo on my phone, and that's the photo we used to make that coin.
And the Jabba and the katana as well, the same.
Jabba is a photograph of my figure, and the katana was also a photograph of my figure. And uh, the Sarlacc pit came from, and you'll recognize it from the tentacle from the Target pack. So those are all. That's the funny thing, is those are all toys that are represented on there.
I mean, it's really incredible.
That was one of the directions we had from the beginning. Like we wanted to emulate things, but we wanted it all to be toy photography. So if you look at the cover of the book, it looks like the Chaykin poster, but it's all toys. Yeah, you look at the slip cases, they look like this the Star Wars and the Empire cases, but they're all toys. And it was the same thing with the coins. So like, and even the yak face bookmark, the entire thing is all based on toys, because that's what TVC is. And so like, that's what we had to celebrate. And um, I love that all the incentives that came with the Kickstarter were able to follow that theme right through to the end.
Was there any pie in the sky thing that you were unable to realize that you wanted to do?
I think we
Or
did it
any
all.
or
Didn't
any
we?
idea that you're holding over to volume 2?
There's a 20-foot display with 800 pounds of play sand that a photo that didn't make it to the book, that will probably make it into volume 2.
That's going
I'll
to be your
leave it at
teaser
that.
image for volume 2, right? Is that going to
I'll le-
be?
I'll leave it at that. It was 800 pounds of like playground sand. And
Well, at
it
least you
was
didn't put a lot of effort into it.
yeah. So no effort at all.
Do you have active ideas that are informed by the process on this that you would apply to volume 2?
Yeah, we've been collecting data, um, and we're kind of figuring out where we need to be in order to get a volume 2 going, and so we're a ways off still. I think we're about halfway where we need to be, and that could be if the line even makes it that long. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But there are definitely things that we have in the works that we've learned from this book that we would incorporate into the second volume.
I mean, there's something easy to think about the idea that, if it'd be unfortunate if it did end, but all these lines do eventually come to an end. At least you know that when you did it, you're done.
Right.
You
Yeah, and
completed that.
that's the interesting thing, and a lot of people don't understand. Okay, well, if I get this book, it's outdated. It doesn't have the newest stuff, and I think what a lot of people are missing in this is that the book really captures stories and shows photos of things that maybe you don't have, or maybe you jumped on midway into the vintage collection after it was released in 2018. Well, now you've got the story behind the earlier stuff. It talks about the stuff from VOTC and VTSC, which were the precursor lines, and Hasbro's tug of war with Lucasfilm on getting figures on Kenner cards, and so there's a lot of information here that you won't get anywhere else, and it really tells a story of how it went from just kind of like a pie in the sky idea. Oh, let's put modern figures on classic cards, to a full blown line. And so for people who are questioning, well, why do I need a book? And I think is because you're going to get information, and you're going to get photography in here that you probably won't get anywhere else.
And you're going to get a really nice feeling looking at it. If you
Yeah,
if you like
yeah,
these figures, if you like this line, if you're just curious about it, then it's one of those things where it's an aspirational book for a collector to look at and go, oh, I'd love to find that thing, or maybe that's the one I should get rather than that other version, because that's the one that hews closer to what I'd want out of a Han Solo, or what I'd want out of a Princess Leia, or what I'd want out of this or that,
and
or of the 57 Vaders, that's the one I want.
we've even had collectors say, "Hey, I don't have room for everything. The photos are they're so they're big, they're very clear. This is my collection. This book is going to serve as my collection for the stuff that I don't have the space for, or I can't afford."
Yeah, you can have like 4 giant Rubbermaids full of stuff that you have to pull out and dig through to look at something, or you just turn the page to the right VC number. So it's your collection is now this big, right? And sits on a bookshelf in one spot,
Yeah,
which is
yeah. And then you go, oh, that's the one I want to go find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is as a reference guide, as just a document of the figure line. It is an incredible achievement, and I don't know how I didn't know about it when it happened, and that's all on me and my friends, former. uh
What kind of friends are those?
exactly, exactly. uh but where should people go? Where do you want people to go pick up the book? Which they should immediately go do.
They can go to bluemilk.shop, and we have all the flavors available. So we have that you can just buy the regular book. You can buy the slipcase editions. We did an Empire one as an exclusive for Celebration, and we held back some copies because we know not everyone was attending Celebration. So there's the Star Wars one. We have some additional posters that Kim did. So all the goodies are at bluemilk.shop.
And everyone, please go over there and do that so we can get a volume 2 which would be swell sooner rather than later. Not that I'm pushing you all towards anything, which I would not do at all.
Peer pressure.
Not. I'll let everyone else pressure you, but I will encourage them to do so. But so now we've come to the part. This is the Force 5 part that I threatened you with that we are going to do on the fly. I want you two to pick your top 5 favorite figures, and we're gonna, rather than the any era, I'm gonna ask you specifically in tying with the book from the vintage collection.
Oh,
But you also have to rank them. So in your top 5, when you tell me 5, that's your bottom on the list of your top 5. So you're gonna have to make value judgments in the moment as to how you want to choose these.
Now, if only there was a book I could just flip through to,
It's
them all.
I had just heard about a book you might want to look into.
all right, Dave. Let's go. You start at. You want to go
You
back
want me
and
to
forth?
go?
Start at number
Oh,
5. Your
okay,
number
start
5
number one.
choice.
You're 5 first.
Yes, your
Just
lowest first. Your number 5.
Yeah, we'll go one at a time, back and forth.
Endor Capture Luke, number 5.
Endor Capture Luke.
Now, do you remember the VC numbers for any of these? Is that burned into your head?
It was for a while, but all that information is just, and now that's out in a book, I can pick it up and look instead of having to use my brain.
What is it about that particular
30
figure
feet.
that made it onto your list?
It's awesome. We didn't get it with Kenner. Like, okay, we kind of got it with Kenner with the poncho Luke, but you had to take off his head and put Jedi Luke's head on him to have that figure. So the card art, when they switched it to like the Endor scene with Vader and Luke, it's a wonderful shot. The toy is fantastic. The silhouette of the figure is so good, and it comes with every accessory you could possibly want for that figure.
That has the manacles, right?
Yep.
Oh, there it is.
Look at that.
23.
And that's number 5. That's number 5. So like, that's my least favorite of the top 5.
Okay.
So-
Well, now on to you, Rich. What's your number 5? What's your least favorite of your top 5?
Yak Face VC 0000 or 132, I think.
I'll flip to the one because the only difference is the 000 is the Katana exclusive,
Correct.
and he gets a glass, right?
He gets a glass, he comes with a coin, and he has a stamp on his foot.
Oh, and thankfully, it's on a 2-page spread.
Oh, look, there it is.
In this book, for anyone listening to the podcast, I'm holding up photos of Yak Face in all his glory, fully realized.
You know what the funny thing is about that Yak Face? Is that cup was exclusive until like the new Cantina set came out, and it comes with a cup that looks exactly like that.
Because Hasbro reuses. Hey, it's a good cup. It's a solid cup.
It's a very
Why
solid
waste that cup?
right?
Okay, so that's your number 5. What is it about the Yak Face? Is it the cup? Is that why it makes your list?
Yeah, he's got a nice drinking cup. No, it's I think it's just it reached articulation with that figure, reached a point where I think you could balance him on one foot, like in crazy poses. The head, the neck, it's got a double hinge neck. It was just like they really turned a corner on articulation with that figure.
It's not just one single sweet spot, or he's taking a header.
No, and the thing is, Yak Face being one of the rarest figures in the original Kenner line, there's also that kind of association with this where it's that's partially it as well. So just the articulation and that kind of tie to the old Yak Face.
So, Dave, you're number 4.
I've got them all in order now.
Okay,
Outland Peasant Anakin is my number 4.
that's back towards the beginning, isn't it? And just recently re-released.
Right, but I think I prefer the original one to the new one. Like, I know
32.
the photo reel is cool and all, but I really like that old poncho. But yeah, it's my love of the prequels once again. Like, Attack of the Clones is a movie that I adore so much, and that costume is cool because when it first came out in 2002 in the Saga line, it was Anakin Skywalker with a plastic cape and a telescoping lightsaber. which my first figure from the classic Kenner line was Darth Vader, which had a plastic cape and a telescoping lightsaber. So like the parallel there instantly made me love the first figure. And that figure is like a wonderful evolution of it.
Yeah, this has more of a like a burlap sort of lay to the fabric, whereas the other one's much more and more. It seems like there's more fabric on the recent re-release, like an
For sure.
excess of fabric. Like he's
But it's like it's a
like
smoother
he's wrapped
fabric.
himself in his full-on bed sheets. This
He's
seems
got
more conservative in its use of fabric. So you're number 4, Rich?
VC25 Bar 2D2.
PC25 R2D2.
He's
Speaking
just
of a
loaded.
very specific R2D2.
Yeah, he's loaded with everything. He can shock Salacious Crumb. He can give Yak Face another drink so he can double fist. He can shoot out the lightsaber. So it's just
So sort of
fits.
almost the definitive accessory wise R2.
I would say it's pretty close. I think the body's a little clunky. I think if they did a new one, they can improve the body shape a little bit. Maybe the size, but in terms of the accessories, it's just incredible.
Well, now we're up to number 3.
Okay. This is where it gets a little bit tricky.
This is when you're actually making really difficult judgment calls.
Yeah. And my choice for this one is going to have a little bit of a story to it. When it came out, it was underappreciated, and it was a peg warmer for a very, very, very long time. And finally, it's not Snoke. finally, it found its place after the sail barge came out and all the Jabba stuff related to the sail barge. It's woof. That figure is gorgeous. You know, the removable helmet, the soft goods, the sculpt, like the details on the head sculpt are amazing. And it comes with like, a force pike, and it comes with like, a palace blaster. It's a perfect action figure.
Do you recall what number that is, Rich?
That is right next to R2. So it should be maybe 24.
23? No, 24.
Yep, 24. They're ingrained in my brain.
Nice soft goods on it as well.
And as a deep cut, if you go back to the beginning of this podcast, I referenced that fur skirt right there. So like I've been thinking about Woof through this entire conversation.
And this is why we do the things we do.
Right. This is
the bookend. It's a shame there's a few more figures to go. It would have been a nice, beautiful, it's poetry moment to end this on. But we can't, because now we got to go to Rich's number 3.
Number 3, VC 143 Han Stormtrooper.
Bold choice.
It's just way better than that Fruit Loops figure.
Come on.
And he comes with a blaster too.
Yeah, and the likeness that's the best. I think that's the best Han likeness we've ever gotten. And and it's still helmeted. It's not swap out head. So the fact that they were able to retain the helmeted head and have an incredible likeness, it's just a really cool figure. And it's one of those things, again, you kind of look back, and I think a lot of this is the same, is that you look back at the Kenner line as it was one of the missing figures. So, and I did want to make a point about Snoke too. I don't know if people have appreciated this, but in that chapter break photo, we purposely cut a Snoke figure in half because we knew how frustrated people were with it. So that's why we chose that scene, and Alex Weiner from Toy Arc shot that, and he did an incredible job recreating that.
And he did it without a Last Jedi Rey, without a Last Jedi Kylo Ren, and with one Twizzler guard with a switch out head. Like a beautiful, beautiful page. I love that photograph.
So where are the pieces of that Snoke figure now?
Alex has those. He's got the entire he held on to the entire setup with the throne and everything. But yeah, we that thing got that sliced and diced just for the for the photo, because we know people's frustrations at the time were like, this thing is never going away.
Yeah, and it was so hard for us to find one.
But it eventually went away.
Not here.
Remind me afterwards. I'll have to show you my King and I setup
Sounds
with,
awesome.
with Snoke. In fact, let me see if I can do that right now while I'm flipping. Here's the thing, tech-wise, I can take a photo of it across the way and then hold up that photo to you so you can see it. Okay.
That is awesome.
So I don't want to hear any bad talk about that Snoke figure.
The Shakespearean pants.
See, incredibly versatile.
Yeah, and you know what? That picture needs to get out everywhere so people will go out and buy those Snokes.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't expecting that, were you?
It's brilliant.
And they're finally getting along. It's all going
Yeah.
well.
You should have had her levitating a little bit, maybe.
I mean, there. Does that work?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
So, Dave, you're number 2.
Okay, number 2 is Outland Peasant Padme. It was a nice mix of soft goods and paint elements and sculpted elements. And it doesn't come with luggage. It comes with every piece you need to make every variation of that costume in the movie.
Just comes with Anakin's baggage.
Emotional baggage.
Just the emotional baggage.
That's 33.
I was flipping back. There it is. Okay.
And funny story about that figure. So when we were editing the content for this, Paul Mansell and I were looking at the headdress. Now she's got the kind of metallic headdress, and then it's covered up with the cloth. And we got into a heated argument and hung up on each other and were yelling at each other about whether or not this was the cloth was actually covering the metal, because he was saying, oh, it's not the right shape, and I was like, no, but the intent was that it was. And I'm like, that's the whole the disguise part of it. And he's like, well, it doesn't look like the same size. And I'm like, that's because they wouldn't put a big metal thing on her head for filming. So
did you see what else they made her wear in that? They probably would have.
So
they were not concerned about Natalie Portman's comfort.
So we got into heated debate for I think like a day and a half just about that figure alone, about
still
whether,
unresolved.
Yeah, whether
never
or not
spoken since.
No, and he'll fight to this day and tell you that it's not the same thing, even though we found a costume reference book from the prequels that basically said that the intent was that it was covered. The crown was covered by the cloth. So
maybe it's collapsible.
And the funny thing is, I wasn't available during the time of when they're debating it, but I knew that. I knew where to pull the reference to say that this is what it was. I could have saved you guys 4 hours, but
and a friendship.
Yeah.
And a friendship. Yeah, we barely talk now.
So, Rich, what is your number 2?
So number 2 is actually not in the book. So coming soon for your volume 2 is 186 Boba Fett.
Is that the Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi version, yes. I think that the Boba Fett's that they did that were based on, I think Mark Boudreau did them, were all based on the VOTC sculpt, and the things that they did with the 186 to improve that are just incredible. Again, we're at a pinnacle of articulation and paint and everything in this at this point in time. So it's an incredible engineering marvel, I think.
So the definitive Boba Fett
For Jedi,
for now?
absolutely, yeah.
For now, yeah. for now, definitely.
Need an Empire one though.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one, Dave, this is what you arrived at. This is your judgment.
Walrus Man.
Okay, Rich, what's the number?
I want to say 70.
This is not my favorite game.
Oh, geez. Now I gotta
It's a
flip
drinking
through.
game, really.
I might be wrong on this one. I thought it was in the 70s.
I think it's in the 70s.
Is it
I think so. 76.
70? It is 70.
Oh.
I'm like 70. Yeah,
Wow, so it was
70.
really building up anticipation for you
Yeah.
to find this thing.
Like, look at this. You get flipper hands, you get claw hands, you get a severed arm, you get there's a drink, you get, the blaster. The only thing wrong with that figure is
Head.
well, the only other thing wrong with that figure is that Walrus Man was left-handed, so his holster should have been on the other side. But I can let that go because he comes with flippers. I'm easy to please. Flippers on Walrus Man's all I need.
You could have mirrored the photo just to prove your point.
True enough.
You could have fixed it in the book. That was all up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will. One of the other things about the vintage collection that impresses me is, and it's not consistent, but when it does happen, I do enjoy it, is when it seems like they are very much looking to allow you to make all of the different variations
Yeah.
of a figure with the accessories. Like, what was was it Tebow, the Ewok that
Yes.
comes with the alternate headdress?
Yes.
And I'm like,
Star
that's
Colette.
a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wicket.
where you
Wicket.
can make the Wicket from the animated
Ewoks.
series or from the that level of care and attention is when I really appreciate the vintage collection.
Yeah, I think that's where they make a connection with people buying the product. It's like, hey, we understand it and we're passionate about it just like you are. And that's really an indication of that when they do things like that.
But we're not going to put his holster on the other side. So sorry.
No. Well, they probably got, it's funny when I was visiting Kim, I had a chance to kind of look through some of his files that he had saved over the years, and he salvaged some card photos, some of his photos, and there was a lot of stuff that the reference photos that the teams were looking at that were done backward. So between different shots, so whether it's shot in London or LA, what photo they were looking at, it's
If it was printed correctly,
right. And I don't fault them for getting it backward with all the variables, especially with that figure.
when can we get just a nice deluxe art book of just all of Kim's photos?
He's done a series of them.
Has he?
On, Kickstarter.
Boy,
So
your
we're-
friends. You need to talk to your friends. They better not be
this
your
is why I'm making new
Yeah,
friends.
like-
This is why I'm making new friends, and this is why.
So Kim has put out a book for the Star Wars photography, the Empire photography, the Jedi photography, including the Power.
Was not aware.
And then also just recently, he's done a crowdfunder for the 90s stuff. That was, I believe, that also was successfully backed. So it's coming out as well.
That ran from Power of the Force to Episode 1, which was the last bit of stuff he worked on. So yeah, he's put out 4 books.
And now you've got him into vintage collection photography.
Now, you know what the best part is, though? Like, and this is one of my favorite things about the project, is we knew we wanted to do the Kim Simmons photography because he inspired both of us from the point when we were children, and he was on board to do it, and he did it. And then when we got the posters back, we had to go back down to Cincinnati and have him sign them. And lo and behold, he got back into it. He was building dioramas and photographing Kenner toys again. And, we said, did we inspire this? And he's like, yeah, kind of. So like, he's got a new energy and a new passion for doing it again. And it's because he did that 3 Worlds poster. And nothing makes me happier than knowing that we were able to influence someone who's influenced us so much.
And the stuff that he's done, and you'll have to take a look at his Kickstarters. He's put out a couple of posters where he's built a Jabba's palace, a Rancor pit, I think he just shot a barge scene too. So he's done some incredible stuff, just like he would have done it back in the day. And I laughed. I'm like, hey, Kim, is this like 1980s Kim Simmons back? Or like, what's going on here? And he kind of laughed about it. So yeah, it was really good to see that and um, that that creative side of him again.
Well, don't tell him I didn't know. So Rich, you're number one.
Number one, VC 158.
VC 158.
Dave, do you know what it is?
Mm-mm. Not anymore.
So it's gonna be a
Uh,
surprise for you.
No, what is it? X-Wing Luke. I knew it was Luke. Yeah, that's a wonderful figure.
It's again, it just they nailed the articulation, the little detail, the secret detail on the helmet and how it's compatible with Rey, the portrait, the separately sculpted hair, the card looks incredible, and it works with the X-Wing, and it's just a really kind of great figure, interacts with the vehicle, just a cool bookend kind of thing.
So, what was the hardest decision to rank for the two of you of choosing which ones went where?
Uh, I didn't want to say that Boba Fett because it puts pressure on us for a volume 2.
Oh, which was not existent prior to this conversation.
Right.
Never even crossed our mind.
Yeah.
No one has mentioned it to you. No one has asked.
Yeah. Well, there was that one guy at Celebrations, like, you gonna do
Yeah,
a volume,
yeah.
but no
You're
one
like,
else.
lay off us, kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Be happy with what you got. We're done. We're gonna go shoot GI Joes now.
That's right.
Oh no, no.
Yeah, it's definitely not G.I. Joe.
Boy, some trauma just bubbled up. So, do you obviously you're still picking things up just from personal collection? What's been the figure that's been recently released that's excited you the most, or been announced that you're like, I can't wait to get my hands on that and see it?
I'm really excited about the Attack of the Clones Anakin that's coming out, because it's the first time he's ever had that cape in soft goods on any scale.
And we just saw that scene in a flashback.
Yeah, right. It's really
What
good
timing to just get that Obi-Wan.
Isn't it weird that like somehow during that time frame, the teenage Anakin Padawan just looked really old. I can't quite put my finger on why he looks so different in that one scene.
Yeah, it's
but
super odd. I don't know. Yeah, I can't figure it out. But it's weird, the toy synchronicity like that you would have both that era of characters available so close to each other.
Right?
How does that happen?
Dumb luck, I think. It's gotta be dumb luck.
So, Rich, which prequel figures are you most excited about?
Oh, geez. Prequel figures. No, I
Has
for me,
the doing the book changed your view? Even can you look at the figures and go, even if I'm not a fan of the prequels, or I'm a sequelist, I mean, an originalist, I still think that's an awesome figure, and I've
hey,
come to appreciate that figure just based on that.
careful about dropping me in that sequel bucket. You're gonna get me beat up or mugged or something. No,
Come on, there are fans across the board, and
I know. I'm just teasing. No, you know what? I think
I'm getting you a new Snoke figure.
I have to replace the damage one.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I like I don't have a problem with the figures. I just don't have the same kind of that
Emotional
kind of
attachment.
yeah, that connection, the nostalgic connection. But from an engineering standpoint, I can appreciate the Zam Wessel, the heads, the interchangeable heads, the veil. That's an incredible feat of engineering. So it's a beautiful figure.
It's a shame that we won't see a re-release of that.
Yeah, it would make for a great re-release. But
Zam is in the
timing is
first
good
10.
too.
Where's Zam in the list?
She should be in the 30s,
30s, yeah. That first Attack.
probably like
There we go,
30.
30.
There we go, 30.
Yeah, we got the interchangeable heads.
Yeah. And there's so much awesome in that figure, and it's never been re-released. So that tool is just sitting there, sad all by itself.
So
waiting
then
to come
quickly
again.
reel off to me, a couple each. Doesn't have to be 5, but the ones that you feel are most in need or deserve it of a re-release. Because that's the weird thing to think,
Yeah.
it's difficult to get
Pr-
into the vintage collection
Prune
and be
face.
super excited by it,
Yeah, prune
knowing
face,
that
for
so
sure.
much of it is difficult to obtain, or at least not inexpensive to obtain. And it's not like the original Kenner line where they kept all the figures in production throughout the entire run.
I think Prune Face is definitely one. I think the two droids that they mistakenly, or sorry, the two minifigures, the Death Star droid and the Salacious Crumb that they mistakenly didn't number properly, which if you're a carded collector, they're so expensive and they're a gap in your collection. Tarkin is probably another one that could use a re-release.
I don't know. I'd rather see Tarkin get redone instead of re-released.
I mean, it probably need a Tarkin, you know. Um,
Yeah, there really
the
hasn't been a definitive, this is the best Tarkin ever.
right. I would like them to see them go back and do some of the exclusives, the Jar Jar and Carbonite. I know it came with the set, and a lot of people have that set, but I don't think you should have to be punished for joining, the party late. Um,
Which
give
does
people,
feel sometimes with vintage collection like that, just by the
yeah,
nature of how many there've been and
yeah,
how many of them were just exclusives or uh uh not produced in the same quantities as other characters. Yeah, it's not a line to get in too late easily.
yeah, and so some of those more expensive figures, I think, are definitely, you know,
And photo reels sort of changed the game too, where you can go, that was a great figure, but boy, it would look even better if it had that photo reel paint on it.
yeah, and probably Landing Luke is another one. Um, the X-Wing is, you could probably still find an X-Wing on Amazon, or maybe I'm assuming it might be on Pulse. So to have a Dagobah Landing Luke to go with that, especially since a Yoda just came out, that would be nice timing. Um,
And we got Jedi next year, so who knows what re-releases we might see for the anniversary.
they got they have to do the aliens. They've got to do some of those aliens because they were so incredible. And just the Bib Fortuna, that's, in terms of figures that I'm looking at now and saying, wow, this is incredible.
Well, Dave, imagine getting that Endor Luke with a photo reel re-release
They,
next year.
they did it.
When did they do the? But
That was like one of the first.
Did I miss that too?
Was
It's
that
in the book.
2020? I think they're 2020, or no, it was 2019. It came out in 2019, so it is in the book.
Yeah,
That
it
was
is in the
that was
book.
the weird. That was the ones I missed because of the didn't catch them, and then the pandemic hit, and then
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then as you've remarked, I think in the past, that the secondary market during the pandemic has gone bonkers.
Yes.
Like everyone suddenly decided, I'm going to hunt for things at the
Yeah.
same time during this downtime, and things that you describe as peg warmers, like, try and find a Snoke now, just for example. It's not certainly going to not be peg warmer price to find it. It's again, I hate that this to be the recurring thing. It's a difficult line to get into looking for the older stuff at this point if you're looking in the secondary market.
Yeah, I think just some of those figures that aren't accessible, that would, one, help out some of the older collectors that may have missed them, and then two, onboard some of the newer guys that are just kind of, like I said, joining the party late, would be, good releases. And yeah, I may upset some people, but like, I mean, this is their toys are supposed to be fun. If you're investing in this stuff, I don't know. I just don't see it. It can be volatile, just like the stock market. Just like Bitcoin's at like down $20,000. So you're rolling the dice when you get this stuff and taking the chance that it might be re-released in the future.
Right. Which, for people to get upset about that, because I thought it was worth so much, and now it's worth nothing because now
Yeah.
other people can get it.
Well, yeah, like the Ahsoka went from being like $800 to being a $50 figure when it got re-released. Like,
Yeah.
and you know, and that what that says is that people are paying the money because they want to have the figure in their collection, and they're happy with the re-releases. So if Hasbro were to strategize and just see what's hot from the original line, so like I don't mean to keep this prequels, but General Grievous, Commander Cody, which surprisingly enough, because we had to open one, I went out and bought one. And I got the foil card for like $50 and didn't think anything of it. And then, you know, it became a $300 figure like a month later. The Mustafar Darth Vader,
The
stuff
things
like
you sacrificed for this book.
but that's the thing. It's like, I think that they should be looking at what figures are the most expensive in the line, and they should come out with those ones again.
Or
But at
do
the
a
same
pre-order
time-
system which actually gauges what the interest is. Like, hey, if you know, the same way they do the HasLabs,
Yeah.
put a list of figures up for a pre-order, and if it reaches the threshold of being put into production, it goes back into production.
Yeah, like Matty Collector used to do. That
Yeah.
would be brilliant.
Yeah,
At the same time, I'd really love to see them go back to the legacy stuff and put those on Kenner cards. Like, you know,
Ugnaught.
the Rancor Keeper. What's the other Rancor Keeper? Is it Garin?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ugnaughts.
Ugnaughts. Oh, Ugnaughts especially, because you can make a Kenner one out of those parts. So like, why they wouldn't do it, I don't know. It's a head scratcher. But there's a lot of great figures that haven't been Kenner figures yet.
right.
So TVC going back to the stuff from 2008, 2009, and throwing those on Kenner.
Some of those 30th anniversary
Yeah,
figures.
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
It's one of those things. I try not to think too much about the decision-making process at Hasbro. Every time a pre-order goes up for a retail exclusive, I try not to think about the process that goes through the folks at Kenner. I mean,
They
at
probably have
Hasbro.
so many things to balance. You know, they've got new entertainment.
Right.
They've got, okay, how do we go back? And, you know, one of the initiatives that they've talked about is trying to get all the original 96 redone on modern cards. So they're dealing with that. And then, you know, you're looking at, okay, what makes sense? What mainline characters can we update? And so there's so much juggling going on. And it would kind of
And
tell
the
that
toy market,
story.
again, being in sort of the free fall it's still in.
And well, not even that, but just like, okay, so they're planning and then a pandemic hits and they're like, okay, we got to cut back. Well, all of a sudden everyone's buying. Okay, now we got to ramp up. Okay, they start ramping up and now everyone's not buying them again. So now they got
also none of our product are getting to the people who bought it because of shipping issues.
Yeah, so there's just a lot that they have to deal with that you know, I don't envy being in their position.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's so much that they got right. You know, like, you know, a lot of the pack out ratios are perfect, and the selection of characters is great, and the way they're designing them is really cool, and everything. It's like there's a lot of things that they have to learn because the world has changed. But as far as coming out with a solid line of TBC figures, I think they've got it together really well right now.
Well, you know, I'm curious to see where it goes, and I will keep hunting for the figures that I can't find. And I hope everyone else picks up your book because it is an incredible book. And I thank you both for sending it over. It was a delight to look through it. I'm going to spend the rest of the weekend reading through it, and then the next couple of days after that, weeping at the eBay prices for things within it.
And all typos should go to Dave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If anyone spots
Just
anything,
direct them to Dave.
should they tweet at you?
I will
Instagram?
I will be on vacation.
Well, it sounds like you checked out during the proofreading process.
No. We're
No.
we're good. I'm just kidding. No, we're
No one send anything to them.
Yeah, there's one formatting issue on there that drives me a little bit crazy, but
But that's always going to happen.
Yeah.
it's going to
just-
happen.
Just the amount of materials that you were juggling when it comes to layout and copy, it happens. You can have 17 different people proofread a thing, and it still happens. It's still going to come through. And that's why everyone needs to buy 2, 3, 4 copies to trigger a second printing.
You mean a special edition?
All of this, yeah.
We'll
where
put
you
CGI in there.
you should just drop in extra shots
Yeah, why not, right? Maybe change the narrative. Someone else will shoot first. I don't know.
Where's this figure? What happened to it? This figure used to be in here.
Who's this other figure there?
How is there no Snoke figure in here?
Why does he look like a werewolf?
Rich. So again, where should folks go to get the book if they are so inclined, which they better be after this?
They can go to bluemilk.shop, and all our entire catalog of stuff is there. We've got some, especially if you grew up with the old Kenner figures, we have posters that Kim shot on that nice yellow background.
That's
Yeah.
an incredible poster.
If you're just looking to pick up the folio, we've got that available, and of course the book.
Or a bookmark. If you just want a Yak Face bookmark for sticking in all of your Star Wars books.
There you go.
Pick up those Steve Stansweet books, which are the perfect companion to this book, and stick your Yak Face bookmarks in so you can bookmark all the figures that you need to go find. We lost you, Dave.
Oh, Dave's checking out early, just like always.
It was all of your prequel hate that did it. Oh, he signed off completely. Let's see if he comes back in. Give it a second. Although technically,
he just texted me. Computer just died. He's off for the count.
It's a good thing we were at the end then, and that was perfect timing.
My Force Ghost powers have killed his computer.
So he'll be joining you as a Force Ghost soon? Is that when he's going to pop back in?
Yes.
So where can people find you on social media, or what would be?
We're on Instagram. So if they hit up bluemilk.shop, we've got links to all our socials there. We're on Instagram, and we do a little bit on Facebook too. And we're working on an app companion to the book, which we hope to release by the end of this year. And we'll see how things go with that. We're hoping to kind of change the game with how people collect and set a new bar with apps, kind of how we feel like we did with the book.
Well, thank you for doing the book. You have to pass this along to Dave. Thank you for doing the book. For all collectors, thank you very much. It is an invaluable resource and just a wonderful read. And thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, on behalf of Dave, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And it was great to have a conversation with someone who loves the line and has been collecting it for years, just like a lot of us have. So thank you.
Well, much like Qui-Gon, I think he's probably learning how to become a Force Ghost right now. And unfortunately, will join us after we've signed off, which we're doing right now. So I would like to remind everyone, if they would like to support me, they can go to patreon.com/Ken Plume to do that. And please let everyone know about A Bit of a Chat and Force 5. And if you're listening to A Bit of a Chat, go watch Force 5 to see everything that we held up and talked about. If you're watching, you've got the full experience, but go listen to A Bit of a Chat anyway. There's tons of great guests that you should go check out. So thank you, regardless, for watching, listening, being here, supporting everything. And I still haven't worked out a proper goodbye. So I'm just going to say, on behalf of me, goodbye. Bye.